those watching online. I'd like to start by saying the City of Swan acknowledges the traditional custodians of the region in which we meet, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and their descendants. Item 2 is the disclaimer. The terms and conditions of entry into this meeting are posted on the door as you enter. Please ensure that you've read them prior to attending the meeting and abide by them. Attendance and apologies. Item 3, both Councillor Henderson and Councillor Congdon on an approved leave of absence. Councillor Johnson and Councillor Parry have both completed the application form to attend this meeting electronically, which has been approved, and they've both declared they are in a secure location on council supplied equipment and are able to maintain confidentiality. And Councillor Parry will be joining us from about 7:30 onwards. He's on a outside site and he's got to get back to his location. They've both declared that they have no interest to declare. Item 4, declarations of financial proximity or interest affecting impartiality. Last week, Councillor Bowman and Richardson made declarations. They're in the run sheet, will be in the agenda. I've since received one from the CEO. And it's in relation to item 4.3, proposed truck stop roadhouse, Neves Road, Bullsbrook. It's an impartiality interest as his son works for Planning Solutions, being the applicant on behalf of the owners. I asked, are there any others to be declared, councillors or staff? Being no other interest, we'll go to item 5, public question times. Questions and answers recorded in the minutes of the meeting may be summarised in accordance with local government administration regulations of 1996. Questions and answers marked with an asterisk have been amended either for the purpose of summarising, that is removing preambles or statements, or for editing purposes. All questions will be published in the minutes of this meeting. Item 5.1, answers to questions which were taken on notice. Questions taken on notice at the ordinary meeting of council held on the 12th of April from Mrs. Viola Maripodi are included in this agenda. 5.2, questions relating to reports contained in this agenda. And 5.2.1, questions of which due notice has been given, there were nil. 5.2.2, questions without due notice, and there's some. First of all, from Mr. Andy Hughes on item 4.5, the proposed dining hall on Marshall Road, Bennett Springs. There were 6 questions in total. They'll all have to be taken on notice, so they're only received last evening, and written answers will be forwarded to Mr. Hughes, and then they'll be in the agendas also. The next person who asked questions was Mr. Ross Underwood from Planning Solutions on item 4.3, proposed truck stop roadhouse. These were only received this morning and once again will have to be taken on notice. I'll ask if there's any member of the public who wishes to ask a question on an item that is in the agenda tonight. No questions from the public gallery. Then we'll move to item 5.3, other questions, and 5.3.1, questions of which due notice has been given. And there were 3 questions from Terry Costley, and those questions have been answered. Mr. Jeff Blinko asked 5 questions, and those questions have also been answered and are in the run sheet. Item 5.3.2, questions without due notice. We've had a number of questions, being 10 from Anne Winchester from the Upper Swan District Ratepayers and Residents Association, and unfortunately I'll have to take those questions on notice as well and get back to Anne in writing. I'll ask, are there any members of the public who wish to ask a question on an item that's not on the agenda tonight? Yes, if you can please come forward, state your name and ask your question, please.
I'd just like somebody to remind me, what is the due notice? So how much notice do we need to give prior to a meeting to have?
Well, obviously the earlier the better, so staff have got time to prepare the answers, and depending on the type of question and its complexity, it could be a few days to a week beforehand. But like deputations and public statements, we usually require the day before, And sometimes we get them on the day, or if they need a lot of research, then we need more time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That takes us to item 6, councillors, registration and public statement time. Registration for public statement was required by 10 a.m. today. I've got 2 people registered. It's both concerning item 4.1, the rezoning of John Septimus Road School, and I'll call Mr. Gordon Doughtry to the microphone. Thank you, Gordon. You've got 2 minutes to make your public statement once you start speaking. You just turn the microphone on when the red light comes on.
Yep.
And
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, hello everybody. Okay, my name's Gordon Doughtry, as Councillor said. I've lived in Beechborough for some 30 years behind these trees. Marri trees, they're Noongar name for blood. In the early days, the colonialists used to use the gum to stain their clothing and their leather, etc. They've been around for a long time. The Marri trees in this area are part of a woodlands area, a very old woodlands area. We used to have owls, etc., all nesting in them. No more. What's left is small groves of Marri trees. And these Marri tree groves make up a jigsaw puzzle through all the parks. They support a lot of things, but in particular, they support a new species, a subspecies of red-tailed black cockatoo. It was discovered by the Australian Museum, the CSIRO, and the Sydney University in 2020. It's Banksii echidaitis. The Australian Museum now has specimens to register the DNA for that, etc. It is a separate species discovered in 20. There's ongoing study about the Marri tree for the food. It's seen, there's a white paper out at the moment, but it's still ongoing study by the CSIRO. It's thought that this subspecies is a cross between Samueli and the Nassau.
You have 30 seconds left, thank you.
Okay, it's been around for a long time. We're trying to preserve these groves that support the young birds. I can talk a lot more, but obviously I've run out of time. It's very, very important that we preserve these in a reserve environment with that rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon. I'll now call the next speaker on the same item, Tanil. Thank you once again. After you start speaking, I'll give you 2 minutes and I'll try and tell you when you have 30 seconds left. Thank you.
No worries. My name's Tanil Doughtry. I've lived in the city of Swan all my life. I've built a house in Brabham about 7 years ago now. So that's my dad. That school I grew up, that was in my back garden. I guess what we're trying to get across the point is that while we're not opposed to the rezoning of the whole site, it would be nice to see that the City of Swan could have some input in keeping the grove of trees at the back of the property for these subspecies, but also for all the reasons that the City of Swan have listed on their Have Your Say survey at the moment. So there is a survey on the City of Swan website called Branching Out, which is interesting because they're asking residents to participate because of the importance of the trees. So the ones that are currently planted seem to not be important, is what I gathered. So they're asking residents, and especially in these new developed suburbs, to plant trees on our blocks. My block is approximately 270 square metres, with my house taking up the majority of the block. And I'm not sure where I'm supposed to plant these trees. We already have trees that are established. It takes years and years for them to be big enough and to be able to sustain these populations of black cockatoos that are already there and thriving. So what we're asking basically is that if the City of Swan could have some sort of input to perhaps rezone the site but keep the grove of trees at the back.
You have 30 seconds left if you need it.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your public statements. Well done. Before we move on to petitions, Councillor McCullough, would you like to address the meeting?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to advise this meeting that a complaint was made to the Local Government Standards Panel in which it was alleged that I contravened a Division 4 in Reg 18 of the Local Government Code of Conduct Regulations 2021 when I made certain comments in respect to Shalom House at the Ordinary Council meeting of the 5th of October 2022. The panel found that I breached Regulation 18(1)(b) of the said regulations as my conduct was inappropriate and deserving of a penalty and further derogatory. I accept that I should not have made those relevant comments, and I now apologise to the board, supporters of Shalom House, councillors and the public.
Thank you, Councillor McCulloch. That takes us to item 7.1, petitions, and I believe Mr. Dutray or Tennille will be presenting the petition. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Thank you. If you can come up to the microphone. And if you can just read out the heading of the petition, how many people have signed it, and then I'll go on from there. Thank you.
So the title of the petition. Sorry, just a moment.
Does it start off with a heading or a statement?
Yes, so the statement reads, protect old growth marri trees in the city of Swan. John Septimus Road Anglican School, Beachborough campus closed in December 2022. At the rear of the school is an old growth of marri Corymbia califia trees that provide a creche for young red-tailed black cockatoos. The Nassau red-tailed black cockatoo is listed as threatened on the EPCB Act 1999 and 2013. The City of Swan has proposed to rezone the school from private clubs and institutions to residential development. In simple terms, it means this, that the City of Swan would like to rezone the school land to residential development, and as a result, the grove of trees that make up a crucial part of the black cockatoo's habitat corridor will be removed. The cockatoos are not the only species that utilise this grove of trees. There are an estimated 48 other species of birds that also use them. If these trees are removed, we put these species at risk of further habitat degradation, not to mention less trees in an already overheating urban environment. Please show your support by signing this petition and acting against the rise of profit before conservation. And so far, we have 219 signatures on the petition.
Thank you. Staff member will collect that, and I'll require a resolution, councillors, for that to be taken in. You're moving that way, Councillor Bowman? Okay, question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, if this is the petition that got circulated to all councillors, does it comply with the Local Government Act? And a couple of things I note. I believe the heading, probably remembering back, the heading wasn't provided on every page. The signatures or the names of the people did not have the addresses and was simply of the 217 or 219, 11 would indicate they put a suburb that was the City of Swan, and as such, it does not meet the requirements, the basic requirements of petition.
Thank you, Mr. CEO.
Councillor Bowman is correct.
Thank you. I'll leave it up to this meeting whether I get a mover and a seconder for the petition. And if moved and seconded, I'll then put it to the vote. The petition needs to be dealt with in conjunction with item 4.1, the proposed amendment of local planning scheme number 17. So you can take it into consideration when we debate or have that item come before us tonight, councillors. You're moving it, Councillor Catalano. You're seconded, Councillor Predovnik. I'll ask, is there anyone against? Do you wish to debate it? Thank you. Councillor Catalano.
The reason why I'm moving it is it might not comply, and that's been made clear. But the thing is that this is a very important public interest item. It affects absolutely everybody in the City of Swan, and in fact, it affects everybody in the state of Western Australia, in Australia and globally. You know, the loss of biodiversity, the loss of habitat. This is really something that people need to be seriously concerned about, and there are a lot of people concerned, and a lot of people on that petition
are not from the City of Swan, but they're just as concerned as a lot of people in the City of Swan are. So my argument is that sometimes you can get caught up in procedure over content, but this is an issue where the content far outweighs any procedural irregularities. So I'm suggesting that we go ahead and adopt this.
Thank you. Councillor Budovnik is the seconder.
Yeah, I'd really like to echo those sentiments. Again, technically it might not tick all the boxes, but the intent here is to just raise an issue and make council aware that there's been requests to keep these trees. I think it would just be mean of us not to accept this in the spirit that it was intended.
Thank you. Speaker against the motion, Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, the Local Government Act is very specific in what's required to have a successful petition. Mr Mayor, this doesn't even tick one box, let alone all the boxes. Mr Mayor, if I recall, names on that petition were of people from different countries. How did they sign the petition? That concerns me. Mr Mayor, if we accept this as a petition, what will we not accept in the future? Because quite easily, Mr Mayor, it's easy to put 219 names without being verified of that. Mr Mayor, I understand it's an important issue, but it's not a petition. Call it whatever else you want, but this cannot be received as a petition because it doesn't meet the Act.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion, Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, councillors, gallery. I guess I just wanted to say that, we welcome that the community brings an issue to council and that people in the community who are busy, who are working, have actually gone out to the community and brought this issue forward. It takes a lot of time to go out and get those petitions. I understand that, in this instance, and I understand Councillor Bowman's position, that we maybe need to take this time to raise the issue with staff, possibly, and before petitions are actually accepted, maybe give some guidance to the community because they're not councillors. Even councillors are always learning. And I completely understand where you're coming from, Councillor Bowman, but I think just in this instance, we can guide and we can teach and help the community to understand how to come to agenda forums, how to come to council, how to approach councils and bring things from the community. I don't believe all of those names on that list wouldn't be compliant. There may be a couple, but predominantly the community addresses and names that are on there are from their local community. If we can use this as a future learning tool, that would be fantastic, but I wouldn't want to, waste the community's time. They've gone out and done all this work just over a couple of bits, so we're trying to really encourage people to get involved in council and community. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker against the motion. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Catalano, you're right to reply.
I just want to say that the fact that people from overseas bothered to make a comment on this petition, which was an online petition, just goes to show you that all eyes are on us. Seriously, this is not confined to this room. This is a seriously a global issue, and the loss of our natural environment is something that everybody in this room needs to be taking into serious consideration over procedural matters. We know what was intended by this petition being put forward, and I believe that we, in the spirit of should accept that spirit and get on with adopting it.
Thank you. I'll now put the motion. Those in favour of Councillor Jones, Councillor Budovnik, Councillor Howard, Councillor Catalano, myself, Councillor Knight, Councillor Richardson, Councillor McCulloch and Councillor Johnson. I make that 9. Those against were Councillor Bowman, Councillor Singh and Councillor Zanino, which is 3. I believe that's the correct number. The motion is passed. And Councillor Johnson, yes, I counted him. Thank you. I'll just say when we get to that item, councillors, the weight of the signatures and the number of people who live overseas that you put on the petition is up to you to balance out when you're considering the item in full. Thank you. I'll ask if there's any member of the public or councillor who wishes to present a petition. Being no further petitions, that takes us to item 8, deputations. And as you're aware, deputations for this meeting were held last week at the Agenda Forum on the 3rd of May. I'll now move to item 9, which is announcements by the presiding member. And I'd just like to state that last Thursday, I was very proud, along with a number of councillors, to open the new $6 million Ellenbrook Youth Centre. It'll be for young people aged between the age of 12 and 25. It'll provide a space where young people can socialise, connect, participate in a range of health, well-being and development opportunities. The centre includes basketball courts, playing fields, shaded facilities to sit and hang out with friends, a creative studio, first aid room, and a laundry and cleaning facilities where young people can go and do their washing and laundry. It'll also have services such as counselling, financial advice and employment assistance in training. I'd sincerely like to thank the state government and their agencies such as Lottery West for a $2.5 million contribution, and the state government recovery plan for $1.86 million. Without this project could not have been possible. Also like to thank Ellenbrook Joint Ventures and Stocklands for their contributions. It's a fantastic investment of our future youth in the Ellenbrook and surrounding areas. I'd like to congratulate the youth who is involved in the project right from the outset in designing, and obviously it will give young people in our city the opportunity to grow and prosper. So thanks for all those people involved. That now takes us to item 10, members' questions, and 10.1, answers to questions which were taken on notice. Councillor Bowman, I believe your 12 questions have been answered. Anything come out of them?
Well, Mr Mayor, I've got 3 follow-up questions I'll do later, but just wanted to point out that Millhouse Road closure was unauthorised. It wasn't authorised.
No, if you want to take it up, I'll have to speak to it at a later time. Councillor Johnson, your 2 questions have been answered, and that takes us to, thank you, 10.2, questions of which due notice has been given, and Councillor Howell, I think you had 9 questions there which have been answered, which takes us to 10.3, questions of which due notice has not been given. Are there any other questions of councillors? Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So, Mr Mayor, 3 follow-up questions. First one, is it correct the staff of earlier this week met with Watercorp and both parties see the benefits of the track? Watercorp is now updating the TMP to show inclusion of the track.
Mr Jacowina.
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes, that's correct.
Mr Mayor, my next question is, why was this not previously considered or at least reviewed when asked the questions of staff in early April?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the city did consider it, and then we have now had further discussions with Watercorp, and it has seemed to be a viable option.
Mr Mayor, my follow-up question. Since the 1st of July, staff advised that no new car park owners requesting their ACROG parking bays be enforced by the city, reminding council of the May resolution last year, which was to support a targeted marketing campaign to local private car park owners around the availability of city ACROG only enforcement options for private car parks, and support the implementation of a marketing plan to promote both this Bay is Someone's Day campaign alongside broader awareness of the fines and penalties for misuse of ACROG bays and ACROG permit eligibility. Noting the answer to 12C, has the council resolution of May 2022 been undertaken by staff, and if so, why has it been a complete failure? Does this resolution have the support of the executive?
Mr Bishop.
Through you, Mr Mayor, that council resolution has not yet been fully actioned. It does have the support of the city, and there is a proposed marketing campaign to private car park owners to encourage them to be a part of what is an opt-in scheme as part of that program.
Mr Mayor, follow up to that. It's taken us 12 months to get to a marketing campaign. We've not done anything since. Is that what I'm hearing?
Mr Bishop.
That's correct.
Any other questions, councillors? Then we'll go to item 11, leave of absence, and I've got 2 requests for leave of absence. The first one's from Councillor Knight from the 12th of May to the 21st of May inclusive, and one from Councillor Zanino from the 9th of June to the 18th of June inclusive. I need a resolution. Thank you, councillors. You've got another one, Councillor Richardson?
Yes, thanks, Mr Mayor. So it's 24th of May 2023 to the 27th of May 2023.
So the 24th to the 27th of May inclusive. Thank you. I'll need a resolution, councillors. You're moving that way, Councillor Bowman. Seconded, Councillor Jones. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare that leave approved. Which takes us to item 12, confirmation of the minutes, and there's 3 lots to be confirmed. 12.1, confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 12th of April 2023. 12.2, confirmation of the special meeting of council held on the 13th of March 2023. And 12.3, confirmation of the special meeting of council held on the 2nd of May 2023. You're moving all 3, Councillor Bowman. Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Richardson. I ask, is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare those carried. Item 13, any business left over from the previous meeting? Nil. We'll now go to part B of the agenda. An adoption of those recommendations contained in items not withdrawn. And for the benefit of members observing the meeting, the council uses an en bloc method of decision making. This means that agenda items where council supports the officer's recommendation are not debated separately. One vote is taken on all the items and the officer recommendation therefore becomes the decision of the council. The following items have not been withdrawn for individual consideration and will be dealt with via the en bloc vote. Therefore, the officer recommendation will be the decision of council, and they are items 3.1, adoption of the Whiteman Local Area Plan, 3.4, updated local emergency management arrangements, 4.3, responsible authority report, proposed roadhouse, Neves Road, Bullsbrook, 5.1, proposed permanent road closure of Adelaide Street and a portion of Waterhall Road, South Guildford, 6.1, the financial management report for the period ended the 31st of March 2023, and 6.2, list of accounts paid March 2023. That now brings us to the next item. The following reports from 5B have been withdrawn for debate and in accordance with meeting procedures local law 2019 will be dealt with by the council individually. In part B, I'll just read out the item numbers for now until we get to that item. Items 3.2, 3.3, 3.5, 4.1, 4.2, 4.4, 4.5, 5.2 and 6.3. That now takes us onto page 18 of the run sheet, and the first item under heading 3, community planning and development. Yes, I thought it was going too well. No doubt motion, councillors, to adopt all those items not withdrawn on the en bloc. Move Councillor Jones. I need a seconder. Councillor Knight. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare all those items in Part B not withdrawn unanimously adopted. That takes us, as I said, to item 3.2, annual meeting of electors, motion 22, Ellenbrook Eastern T-ball and softball club. It's on page 31 of your agenda. Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I move that council resolves to add additional item 6 to the officer's recommendation, and that is request the CEO to review the actions and process undertaken by the administration prior to the annual electors meeting in processing the Ellenbrook Eastern's T-ball and softball club original request, and 2, record the reason is to review the process to ensure maximum equitable use of sporting ovals are being achieved.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Richardson. Is there anyone against? There's no one against. I declare that carried unanimously. Takes us to item 3.3, Once again, annual meeting of electors, motion 24, Ellenbrook United Football Club's on page 35 of your agenda. Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I move the council resolves to 1, acknowledge the uniqueness of the Ellenbrook Sports Hub for synthetic soccer fields. 2, endorse a 12-month seasonal booking for the Ellenbrook United Football Club at the Ellenbrook Sports Hub for a fee equal to the cost of twice the annual winter season fee each year. 3, note that the city continued to apply community facility booking and management practices that facilitate fair and equitable access and appropriately maximise utilisation that caters to the diverse needs of sporting clubs, stakeholder groups and the broader community. And 4, the cause of the reason had been due to the uniqueness of the facility and the fact that Ellenbrook United Football Club are the predominant user of the facility and they wish to use the facility during the summer months, they should be provided full year access without the need for casual bookings in their off-season period.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Knight. Is there anyone against? You wish to debate it, Councillor McCulloch?
Yes.
Thank you. You have 5 minutes. Thank you, Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I strongly suggest that this report is somewhat misleading, somewhat biased and does not provide the correct facts, in my opinion. This report should have been pulled and the question was asked at last week's agenda forum. Let me go through a few of them. Various birthday parties. When pushed, there's been 3 in this financial year only, but there's no mention of the 18th or 21st birthday party when significant damage was done. The 8 other users of the synthetic fields, nearly all are one-off use during school hours, and most of the bookings were a result of the club, not the City of Swan staff. Staff advised the impact of city program revenue is considered to be inconsequential to the football club's request. They've also come back and said the city program revenue stated in the report includes revenues from all programs run by staff based at EDOS that are operated across 3 different locations. So the actual EDOS only revenue component is only $12,225. Those multiple sites where the planning occurs is Swan Valley Anglican Community College and Holy Cross College. All programs is coordinated, however, from EDOS. Mr Mayor, this coordination could be undertaken at any other venue in Ellenbrook, and the main reason for it being located at this site was apparently to increase security in the early days and to get more use of the synthetic soccer pitches, which the administration has not done, but the soccer club is doing a great job. And a 12-month booking will allow them to do even more. A seasonal period, 6 months, which aligns to the Football West regular season fixtures, as well as other sporting codes across the city, staff have said. We heard from the club president, their season is 9 months plus pre-season. I expect this is not unfamiliar to the netball, where they have their winter season and they also have a spring season. Mr Mayor, staff have come back and said there's been no request for a seasonal booking at the site from other users groups. The points of this one that makes it different. This is unique, the multi-million-dollar synthetic pitches. Other sports can't be played on it, although wasn't that the sales pitch at the time that they could. This is not about a club getting a cheaper rate. This is not about a club getting special treatment. This is about getting maximum use of the 4 soccer pitches. This is about the city reducing operating expenses. Mr Mayor, I'm going to read you a little transcript of a bit of an email which involves conversation with the president as well. And this is my email to the CEO. At the last Peace Ward meeting, I flagged an issue regarding possible double booking of the soccer pitches at EDOS and advised that the soccer club had bookings for 3 pitches, 1 of the 4 cannot be used. I also asked where the City of Swan organised futsal program is to run from on the knowledge of all available pitches already booked. In reviewing the minutes of the meeting, the following was provided. Currently only 1 pitch, pitch 2, is not in use due to the surface condition. The 3 other pitches are still available in operational use, with only part of pitch 4 being used for the futsal competition. I've actually seen the soccer club's booking of the 3 pitches. They're required to book each one for each occasion and is outside the winter season, a reason for their motion at the annual electors meeting. I'm also aware of the difficulties they are currently encountering with only 3 of the 4 pitches usable. I therefore rang the club president, asked about not having access to all of pitch 4, and he advised in a meeting last night, obviously this email was a couple of months ago, he was told that part of pitch 4 booking was refused and that he was emailed about this, which appeared not to be in the case. In addition, there have been a number of conversations between him and the staff since the bookings were made, and this has never been mentioned previously. It seems very coincidental that after raising the double bookings issue at the ward meeting, that it would now appear part of their booking was previously approved has now been refused. Surely, if a mistake had been made by the City of Swan staff in advertising a futsal program at the location already booked by someone else, then it's up to staff to fix the problem.
Yeah,
And
1 minute left.
surely
thank
this
you.
would not be simply to refuse a booking that was previously approved. I've also been advised by the president of the soccer club that at last night's meeting discussions were also had regarding their motion that was passed at the electors meeting. Staff asked exactly what they wanted and were advised what was moved and passed at the electors meeting. It would appear that staff do not support this because, in the words of the manager, they have to justify the job. When questioned further on this, it was explained that the City of Swan position based at EDOS South Pavilion would have a lot less work to do and would be hard for them to justify the position. Councillors, this is unique. We have a multi-million-dollar facility that only soccer can be played on. There has been no other request for seasonal use, and as such, there's not playing preferences. It's not setting a precedent, and it's making the best outcome of a situation and getting more use of the synthetic soccer pitches.
Thank you, Councillor Bowman. Councillor Knight is the seconder.
Nothing to add, thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor McCulloch, you wish to speak against?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I don't believe the report, and I have read it extensively and asked some questions, to be misleading, biased and not factual. We know that seasonal bookings are common practice across local governments to make sure that we facilitate shared and equitable access, and that's important. We might be addressing a potential minimised access or a lack of use at times, but this facility is unique, and for that reason we are to accommodate additional users, clubs and other activities and the city's sporting programs in the off-season. Ellenbrook United do a fantastic job in the community, don't get me wrong. I have worked with them over a number of years for different things. They work hard to promote sport, young people in sport and girls' sports programs as well. And I acknowledge and honour them for that, and it is truly exceptional. But introducing that 12-month booking season that is completely unique to them may create that inequality. We may have, and who's to say that they don't come on board as the growth of our community out in Ellenbrook that is considerable. We see growth and we see new clubs coming on board and new initiatives, to say that other clubs may want the same for their facilities and the potential limitations that it would place on other users of the facility. And we know in local government that precedents is a very real thing. And if we look at the sporting facilities across the City of Swan and the usage, and setting a precedent such as this could create some considerable implications for us as a city. So those booking arrangements and fees and charges are applied equally. They do cater for sporting club regular season training and games, whereas the pre and post-season activity, which is more irregular and casual in nature, is booked separately and on an as-need basis. And respectfully, I don't believe that we are limiting the usage in the off-season. We are just making sure we have that shared equitable access for other users. Hence, yes, the uniqueness of this facility, but also its ability to facilitate and cater for multiple groups for different things into the future for a growing community. And as a city, we want to maximise the use of that facility during the summer season by those other programs on the facility, enabling other user groups as much as possible. So officers in their report spoke about working closely with Ellenbrook United Football Club over those years and looking and considering booking arrangements that meets and that is the most effective method to meet the needs of the club and the broader community. And look, it also states that the city is confident that this can be done while still maintaining that balance. and those booking requests will require the club to submit information regarding their required days and times of use. And I do believe, and I know that our officers will work to simplify the process with the club now that it has come to light. But we do need to have the flexibility for the shared and equitable access for this facility in our growing community. So I urge you, if this motion fails, that I will move the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCulloch. Speaker for the motion. Any other? What is your amendment? Thank you, Councillor Jones.
To include in number 2, so endorse a 12-month seasonal booking for the Ellenbrook United Football Club at the Ellenbrook Sports Hub for a fee equal to the cost, etc., for each year, to be reviewed annually. So that if another club comes along.
I'll ask the mover and the seconder if that's acceptable to them.
I'm totally fine with that.
Seconder? Yeah. So that amendment becomes part of the substantial. Yes. Do you want to debate against that, Councillor McCulloch, or is that fine with you?
May I ask a question in regards to that?
You
Mr.
may
Mayor?
ask the question.
Yeah. So on an annual basis, what happens in the interim in that 12-month period where we may have another group or considerable extended demand or something else due to the growth in the community and sporting clubs? What do we do in that instance if it may be that happens in month 1 of a 12-month commitment before it is reviewed?
Mr. Bishop?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if the club has a 12-month seasonal booking, they would have priority access for that 12-month period. As if the amendment is adopted, then obviously that would be subject to a 12-month review.
Thank you. Having asked that question, Councillor McCulloch, I'll ask if you wish to debate against the amendment or not.
Yeah, I will. Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Mayor.
then I'll ask Councillor Jones to open the debate on the amendment. Sorry. I need a seconder. Councillor Richardson, you haven't spoken. So just to let everyone know, Councillor Jones has moved an amendment, seconded by Councillor Richardson. All
I have a question through you, Mr. Mayor.
question, Councillor Brodovnik.
Just for clarity, so what would this look like if it gets adopted and clubs are seeking to use the facility? Is there an opportunity to work with it?
Well,
Can we get more information about that? I didn't feel that we got enough information there, sorry.
well, the answer from Mr. Bishop was that the club, the Ellenbrook Sports Club, would have priority.
I understand that, but my question is, are we still able to accommodate the request in some way? I'm not sure how it works, so I'd appreciate a bit
Well,
more
it depends when
information.
the booking is and whether it conflicts with the host club.
So do we have any information as to can we get a likely scenario or some kind of scenarios? It just seems very light on detail here.
Well, I think we're trying to second guess what may happen in the future. Councillor Brodovnik.
Can I hear from Mr. Bishop?
Mr. Bishop, if you can assist.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you've summed it up. Basically, we can't predict what that priority access needs of the club will be. As with any club now, if they have a seasonal booking, they have priority access for training needs, for regular games, any other kind of sporting clinics, etc. If a club is given that and has paid for that, they're entitled to obviously priority access and use of the facility. That doesn't mean there aren't other times of the day or week when it can be used for other purposes, because obviously no club uses a facility 24/7, but it just means it may limit or restrict access for other users. Certainly there wouldn't be another seasonal booking by another club because clearly that would conflict. It would be other ad hoc casual uses outside of the use of the Ellenbrook United Football Club.
Okay, so we're now going to debate the amendment. No one has spoken of the amendment, so all councillors can enter the debate. And Councillor Jones, it's your amendment. You start us off. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Just to keep it very brief, the only reason I have said to be reviewed on an annual basis is that it does give other people opportunities after the 12-month booking for us to see where we are and whether we need to be looking at sharing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Richardson is the seconder of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, councillors. Thank you, Councillor Jones, as well for the amendment. I think it brings a equal balance to, we've got a debate here and a pretty big problem. We've got this growing football community, but we've also got Councillor McCulloch also, debating that we have got other growth teams. However, I think that the Ellenbrook Football Club have shown that their growth is quite in demand at the moment. And I'm hoping that if this amendment is passed, that I sincerely hope that the Ellenbrook Football Club would take into consideration that they have been given that 12-month contract. And if a future team of growth was to come along, that we could work with staff and we could work with the club and look at possible different sporting facilities so that we can all share that amenity. While we've got the growth happening, might encourage other teams to come along, and we will need to take into account that growth, and we will need to look for other facilities or to share that facility. So I hope you support Councillor Jones' motion and that we can get a resolution to everyone sharing this facility.
Thank you. A speaker against the amendment? Councillor McCulloch, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I think even in my question I probably covered it, but even in a 12-month period with a growing community and potential utilisation with other groups and other programs that are expanding with the needs and the demands of that growing community, even a 12-month annual review, it is a 12-month annual review, and that's a considerable amount of time. So having that flexibility in the off-season for the city really assists us with enabling the flexibility for our residents, ratepayers and other groups to ensure that we're getting it right for a unique facility and making sure that we do have that shared and equitable access. So I do love the idea of a potential 12-month review, but there's a lot that can happen in 12 months. And if anything, possibly we would reverse it and look at the fact that over this 12 months, we could be cognizant of potential, changes down the track, but just looking at how that might look, but making sure that we have the flexibility to allow other users in the meantime.
Thank you, Councillor McCulloch. Speaker for the amendment. Any other speakers for or against the amendment? For it. Thank you, Councillor Howlett.
Thank you. I wasn't going to enter the debate, but I think 12 months is very reasonable because clubs just don't happen overnight. There's quite a lot of planning involved. So I would have thought that for a new club to come about, the gathering of members and the registration of the club and putting it all together, it's probably going to take at least 6 months, maybe 8 months, and then notifying the city that they'd like to use grounds 3 months to sort of work out a deal. I think 12 months is a reasonable amount of time. That's why I think that 12 months flies by, and putting together a sporting club, I think that would be about the right amount of time. Thanks.
Thank you. Speaker against the amendment? Any other speakers for or against? Then you'll write a reply. Thank you, Councillor Jones.
There's nothing else to say, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now put the amendment. I just want to make sure everyone's clear. The amendment was that the item 2 be words added to be reviewed annually. Those in favour of Councillor Jones, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Brodovnik, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Singh, Councillor Catalano, myself, Councillor Knight, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Richardson. I believe we've lost Councillor Johnson for now, and Councillor McCulloch is against. The amendment is passed and now forms part of the substantive motion. I'll now call for a mover to speak for the motion. Are there any other speakers for or against the substantive motion? You'll write a reply then, Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I agree with some of the points that Councillor McCulloch made. Share and equitable season bookings is common. But Mr Mayor, there's one crucial difference with this facility. You can't play cricket on it, you can't play t-ball, can't play football, can't play hockey, can't play netball, plus all those other sports. You can't play. We were promised that, but you can't play it. You can only play soccer on it. There is no other user group that wants to use this facility. I agree with Councillor McCully. We need to maximise the use of the facility. That's why I put this motion up, because we're not maximising it. And the soccer club is the best group to make maximum use of this facility. Councillor McCulloch said it wasn't incorrect information, misleading. I think I proved that there was follow-up questions and information provided by staff quite clearly showed that. If we go back to the item before, the T-ball, it took them over 12 months of negotiations even to get to a point. So if there is another group that can work out what to play on there and wants it on there, they've got to form first, then they've got to think about things, then they've got to get knocked back by staff to then move forward. We are wasting this multi-million-dollar facility. Multi-million-dollar facility. It can only play soccer on it. Let's get the maximum use. A 12-month season, the club will grow that a lot more than what's currently being done. Thank you.
Thank you. I now put the motion as amended. Those in favour of Councillor Jones, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Podovnik, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Singh, Councillor Catalano, and myself, Councillor Knight, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Richardson, and the only one against is Councillor McCulloch. Therefore, the motion is passed. Councillors, that takes us to item 3.5, Ellenbrook Arts, the tender outcome. And I need a mover and a seconder for the item, councillors. You're moving, Councillor McCulloch. Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Jones. Is there anyone against? There is. You wish to speak against it. You'll have 5 minutes to open debate. Thank you, Councillor McCulloch.
I'll reserve my right. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Jones as the seconder.
I will say nothing to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker against the motion, Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, street lighting is proposed to increase by 43.85%, and we're all 7.9% increase in 1 year, or a 333% increase over 4 years. And here staff are recommending approval. And this is for an expense that this city, us as councillors, actually can do something about. Councillors, the majority of councillors agreed to bail this group out last year when they took it on even more expenditure that was not needed and was not well planned out, with no means to fund the extra cost. We expressed our concerns then, and yet now, instead of the $250,000 plus the $40,000 bailout, staff are recommending a $400,000 expense. I have serious concerns that this group cannot responsibly manage funds that council provides to it. I have serious concerns that this group does not understand the ongoing financial impacts to decisions that have been made and have an expectation the city will continue to bail them out. Councillors, if we had a manager or director come to us during budget time and advise us their service expenditure was going up 37.9% with little or no extra services, what would you say to them? This is no different, and it should not be treated any differently. This is not monopoly money. This is ratepayers' funds, and I'm concerned that keeping our expenditure to a minimum is not a consideration for some. I'll quote what staff have provided. There will be no impacts on rates for the $400,000, as this has already been factored into the 23-24 budgets and rates model inclusive of this. If council decides to remove the $400,000 or reduce to $290,000, then the loans would be reduced by a similar amount to maintain a balanced budget. The fact is, it has already been factored in the budget. It's concerning, and this indicates staff were aware of this, yet the tender only closed in middle April, hence why it's a late report. Let's not forget the only reason this has come to council is because it was a non-compliant tender. I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. A speaker for the motion. Speaker against the motion, Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, councillors in the gallery. As Councillor Bowman pointed out, last year we did debate this heavily, and we did okay a large sum of money to Ellenbrook Arts, and this will be the second handout. And I just want to point out, we talked about being fair and equitable in the community, is that arts are very important in the community, and Ellenbrook Arts does have a home in Main Street. But to point out that there are other community groups and other things that are needed in Ellenbrook with this money. And again, we did have a massive increase in the power bill, as did other local governments. But I cannot support tonight this amount of money when I know that there are other groups in Ellenbrook now that could benefit from other playgrounds or adventure playgrounds or something for the rest of the community that may be not arts inclined. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Howlett.
Thank you. Just briefly, I'll speak against the motion. I just want to echo that this was a non-compliant tender, and I think that speaks volumes, considering that the application is serious money, serious ratepayers' money that's being asked to be provided. I think that we're not helping out the Arts Foundation if we're just constantly supporting them or propping them up. There are other funding avenues, Lottery West potentially, art grants that can be applied for, and that in these days where everybody has to tighten their budget, then perhaps the Arts Foundation should also do the same, and consider that it is ratepayers' money that is being asked to be used. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll ask again, is there any other speakers for or against the motion? Are you back with us, Councillor Johnson? No, not yet. Then Councillor McCulloch, you're right to reply. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, we've had 3 years of service delivery at a certain amount for Ellenbrook Arts over the previous 3 years. And over that time, the communities of Ellenbrook, Averley and Bullsbrook and surrounding areas with a rather large catchment has been provided with valuable arts and cultural programs that have incorporated aspects of multiculturalism, Aboriginal heritage, environment and sustainability.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
What's your point of order? Thank you, Councillor.
Breach of the standing order. Sorry, would you like me to continue? Breach of the standing orders. It's summing up, not introducing new information.
Well, I think Councillor Howlett may have touched on programs and also Councillor Richardson. So I rule you have no point of order. If you can please continue. Thank you, Councillor McCulloch.
So in regards to that, we have seen a rollout of programs in what we would look at as being our second strategic hub or precinct for arts and culture across the city of Swan. And I certainly know when I look at other large local governments and their arts and cultural programs where their support, facilitation and funding for arts and culture across different programs and different groups and organisations is comprehensive. It is beneficial and it is valuable to our community. We talk of street lighting increases, and that is a very real reality. We talk about, well, this is an expense or something that we can do something about. But then we look towards a budget and look at the other expenses that maybe we could do something about. And our arts and culture that encapsulates so much of the heart of the city of Swan, who we are and the people that we need to acknowledge and uphold. I'm sorry, but this is not the expense that we can do or we should be doing something about. I've heard words to do with bailout, handout, propping up, and frankly that upsets me. There was a proportion that was brought to council to do with some increased lease increases that were required to ensure that programs continued to be delivered at the standard they needed to be. So they have been factored into this new amount, which will work over the coming years. That amount is at the lower end of what was proposed. So Ellenbrook Arts looked at what they could do with what budgets we spoke about, and councillors have said there are other funding streams. Well, I can tell you, working in arts and culture and looking at the funding streams on state level, federal and local government, it takes everyone, but it is imperative that we continue to support the arts and culture for our residents and ratepayers. So it's not a continual bailout. That was something in isolation. We now have something in front of us. Mundaring Junction Arts Centre gets a proportion each year and looks at agreements that ensure a continued program for Midland and those surrounding areas. I like to think with Ellenbrook and our growing community are actually servicing almost a bigger area for less money. So the tender, a non-compliant tender. There were aspects around compliancy and then they were worked with. And sometimes that happens with tenders where you look at and address needs and issues. So they were worked through with the fact that these programs that had been delivered across the community over the years were exceptional. They were valuable and they did touch a great number of people in the City of Swan community.
You have 1 minute left, thank you.
So, yes, we do need to be prudent. We do need to look at where we're putting our money and we need to look at the balances and checks. But if we look at the amount of money and investment that we provide for our sporting facilities and so much around groups and young people and others for those areas, I think that this is a small drop in the ocean in comparison. And what it also does is it provides for a lot more. We're talking about aged residents and the elderly, where we've seen valuable programs, and I was at one of those on Saturday night down at Ellenbrook Arts, and also for people living with disability. And if we're not providing in those realms for those that can't get up and kick a ball and do those kinds of things, then I think that's a very valuable and worthwhile cause too. So
Thank you, Councillor.
I encourage you to support this.
Thank you. I now put the motion. Those in favour? I have Councillor Jones, Councillor Prodovnik, Councillor Singh, Councillor Catalano, myself and Councillor McCulloch, which I make is 6. I believe at the moment we've got 11 councillors in the room, none online. So 6 is carried. Those against were Councillor Bowman, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Richardson, Councillor Zanino and Councillor Knight, which is 5. The motion is carried. Thank you. That takes us to the next item. It's on page 21 of your run sheet. It's item 4.1, consideration of submissions, amendment 211 to local planning scheme 17, rezone John Septimus Road Anglican School from private clubs institution to residential development. It's on page 106 of your agenda. Councillor Catalano.
Thank you. The council resolved to, okay, could we have it up? Oh, okay. Note the submissions received on the proposed, it's just that mine's, oh, okay, that's fine. I'll go with the one that's on the board just in case it's slightly different. Note the submissions received on proposed scheme amendment number 211 to support the amendment number 211 to the City Local Planning Scheme number 17. 3, forward the amendment documentation and schedule of submissions to WAPC with a request that the Minister for Planning grant approval to the amendment and its gazettal. Advise the applicant that council wishes to see the existing mature marri trees on site, in particular those at the northwest corner of the site, retained as part of any subsequent development and or structure plan of the land for residential purposes, Advise the applicant landowner and those that lodged a submission of council's decision accordingly. 6. Record the reason for changing the officer's recommendation is that locals do not oppose the rezoning to residential, but are very concerned about the loss of mature Marri Corymbia calophylla trees, especially in the northwest corner of the site, and the loss of mature Marri trees will have a negative impact on bird life, especially on black cockatoo habitat in the Beechborough area, which affects the natural environment amenity of the City of Swan.
Thank you. I have a second and Councillor Bowman. Councillors, this is the item which the petition was presented earlier, and I asked you to give due consideration to the weight you placed on the number of people where they came from. I'll ask, is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare it carried unanimously. Thank you. That takes us to the next item, which is item 4.2, amended North Stoneville Structure Plan 34, Amendment 1, City of Swan comments. It's on page 145 of your agenda. Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, move that council resolves to adopt the officer's recommendation with an additional point D as follows. A decision on the proposal under the Environmental Protection and Biodiversity Act 1999 has not yet been determined. Therefore, the application relies on vegetation clearing, cannot demonstrate that it meets the objectives and intent of state planning policy. 3.7, planning in a bushfire-prone area and the guidelines for planning in a bushfire-prone area.
Thank you. You're seconding that, Councillor McCulloch? I'll ask, is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare that carried unanimously. That takes us to the next item, item 4.4, Responsible Authority Report, proposed 24-hour service station, including parking, access, landscaping and signage, lot 9306 Main Street, Ellenbrook. It's on page 206 of your agenda. Councillor Bowman.
Mr Mayor, I move the council resolves to not endorse the officer's recommendation for the application to the Metro Outer Joint Development Assessment Panel to approve the development, subject to conditions for the following reasons. A, the negative impact on the residential amenity from the impact of odour, noise and light emissions, and B, is inconsistent with aspects of the Ellenbrook Town Centre Development Plan.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Richardson. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare that carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. That takes us to the next item, item 4.5, proposed dining hall addition, lot 47, Marshall Road, Bennett Springs. It's on page 243 of your agenda. Councillor Singh, when you're ready, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I ask to council resolve to modify the officer recommendation by including the following additional condition as condition 2. The first floor of the building shall be limited to activities associated with the use of the land, the place of worship, these being an administrative office and or library and or teaching space for religious classes for children. Record the reason for changing the officer recommendation is to allow the applicant to construct both the ground floor and upper floor of the proposed dining hall addition at the same time for economic reason and being the least disruptive building option, and to allow concern that the first floor cannot be utilized for any means until a purpose application is made by applicant and subsequently approved by the city. Thank you.
Thank you. You're seconding that, Councillor Bowman. I'll ask, is there anyone against? Debate?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. You'll have 5 minutes to open your debate, Councillor Singh.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, I had to go through all the items on the agenda. When the temple management has started from the applications, when they have a first approval and when they ask for next approvals and go all the way to from last couple of years, and they have some objection from previously from some of the departments. But I'm satisfied now with the city will done a lot of work on that applications and the proposal. And now is all the departments has did the green light to good to go. This is my concern. Really have to think about that. The facility is as a temple. They serve the community and serve the whole community, even not just for the Swaminarayan temple's Hindu community. And they don't have a kitchen. They don't have a dining hall from 10 years. If I'm not wrong, maybe not more than 10 years. So we have to think about that. They have just a canopy. They just have a temporary shed for serving the food to everyone. So this is my really concern. So if suppose we have a house but don't have a kitchen in there, don't have a using the appropriate facility to serve our family, and I support the office recommendations, and I need a change to because I heard that the first floor of the dining hall they now have to ready to they give us like they were using for a office administrator or classes or a library. So I just request to everyone to have to be think about that, because I don't think so any objection at this time on this proposal. So we like to have to go ahead for this proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. Councillor Bowman is the seconder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Mayor, to be honest, as of last Friday, I was totally against this motion, and I wasn't supportive of the application for one reason. That's because the upper story did not have a determined purpose, and it's far from normal to receive a planning application without this information. After all, how could the impacts of this application be fully considered, and how could the impacts to the surrounding residents be considered when this information was not provided? If I was a neighbour, I would want to know what the future use of the upper story was to be. I understand that many were not happy when a number of mature trees that were chopped down in the foreshore area, and I've got to say, removing large non-native WA species to replant with native WA species, small, does not sit well with me. However, I understand this is allowed and it's recommended by some agencies. I do note there was a lot of undesirable regrowth that was also removed. I also question the choice of street plantings undertaken by the city, given they are not native to WA. However, Mr. Mayor, these are not planning considerations, and my own personal views on these cannot interfere with the planning decision that I am required to make. There was also the planning concerns of the location of the proposed building in relation to the setback and buffers to the waterways, and they were initially raised by DUA. I note, however, they are now supportive of the application due to the works that have been done thus far on revegetation and erosion control, and there will be a foreshore management plan to their satisfaction that is required. Mr. Mayor, I understand some people may not be happy with that management plan. I understand that perhaps not happy with what the rehab work has been done to date. However, that will be a requirement of this planning application. Councillors, I am now, however, supportive of the alternative motion moved by Councillor Singh, as the purpose of the upper story is now included and is associated with the current use on the site, which is for religious purposes.
Thank you, Councillor Bowman. Before I call for a speaker against, just let everyone know that Councillor Parry has now joined us at 7:15 p.m. Welcome, Councillor Parry, and Councillor Catalani, you speak against.
Thank you. First of all, I want to acknowledge and support the contribution that the temple does make to the city's diversity of cultures, and I also want to acknowledge that there's a lot of people that use the temple. But unfortunately, compliance is not at its greatest at the site. And I've had a lot of complaints about noise and disturbance. And we know that the temple was actually, it came to the area, the land was zoned residential. And whilst it's been given that purpose as temple, unfortunately, it does exist in a residential area, and residences are affected quite adversely, they're telling me, by the noise. And now we've got the development that's actually going to be even closer to those homes and those people. But the other thing I've really got to, it's my duty really to stand here, and I'm afraid I've got to talk about the environment down there. And first of all, I'm extremely upset to learn that, in fact, that the infill of that site upon which this development is proposed was unauthorised. So, you know, it's like, you know, I'll just fill in this creek, and hopefully later on down the track I can build something on it. Now, this is not a first. In fact, I know at least 3 places within pretty close proximity to where we are of this kind of thing happening, and I really think it has got to stop. It's got to stop. We've got to stop treating our
Point of order,
waterways.
Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Your point of order, Councillor Bowman.
Relevance, I believe we're talking about lot 47, number 211 Marshall Road, Bennett Springs, and not other properties.
Nearby locations, I agree. Thank you. You can keep your remarks to the application before us. Thank you, Councillor Catalano.
Okay, well, that's just another example. What we've got now is another example of unauthorised infilling, and we're going to be building. There's a proposal for it to be built upon as well. And, you know, whilst Dewar might have, you know, changed their mind, DBC have not, and DBC haven't for very good reason. And that is that tributary runs into the Bennett Brook, and the Bennett Brook runs into the Swan River. And those tributaries have to be vegetated to a certain standard. I believe they call it an A-class forest, because the water has to be filtered into the Swan River system, so that we don't end up with the whole of the Swan River being full of algal bloom. This applies to all of us, no exceptions. We all have a duty and a responsibility to the current people, to our children and our children's children, to protect this land, to protect these waters. And it's got to start now. Unfortunately, the situation is that we've got yet another one. Every time this kind of proposal comes forward, it's like, well, then the next person will come along and say, well, you know, you approved it in Bennett Springs. Why can't you approve it for us? How many times of this has to happen before we've got to realise that we've got to protect and look after our waterways to the standard that DBCA have asked us to look at? And that's really my main issue. We really do have to all bear responsibility for our impacts on the environment. I understand there's a foreshore management plan, but I also understand that it can't go to that A-class reserve because the building now is too close to the creek because of the unauthorised infill. What's the lesson there? Keep out of the creek, stay out of the buffers, and put your buildings out where on the land that's not impacting on the creek. That's the lesson we've all got to learn from this. Unfortunately, that's the situation that the temple now finds itself in.
You have 30 seconds, I think.
I think it's got to stop. We've got to set an example now for future developers that this cannot be endorsed by the council, that we can't go on like this. We've got to stop approving these kind of developments. We've got to protect our natural environment, and you know, we've got to put in the kind of vegetation that will protect the water quality, because this is a very hot, dry country, and it's going to get even hotter. And the reason why those creeks are considered sacred is because we need to respect that water, because it is our future, it's our life, and it's the life for our children and our children's children.
Thank you, Councillor Catalano. Speaker for the motion, Councillor McCulloch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did attend the site recently and was really happy to see a lot of rehabilitation and trees and shrubs and understory canopy growing well. I think what's gone before is not part of this item before council, and the department has now acknowledged the significant amount of rehabilitation in regards to the revegetation and the erosion control that the Sri Swaminarayan Temple has already undertaken. DEWA is now supportive of the additional rehabilitation proposed, and while it may not be sufficient to offset that proximity of the proposed dining hall, DEWA does recognise that this is a significant improvement to the previous state of Bennett Brook. And long term, historically, for many, many years, the brook was overgrown with a number of weeds and such, which had their own implications. There were also discussions about the constraints of existing utility services, and DEWA also acknowledges that those services had prohibited potential for additional waterway restoration in terms of reducing bank steepness and revegetation on those northern banks. So in regards to this item, we see that there is great community benefit, and DEWA, having now been supportive of that, of the dining hall and the previous car park expansion, they acknowledge the community benefit of the temple, the improvement to the community facilities provided by the proposed dining hall, and also now the contributions to community education in regards to our natural environment and Indigenous heritage that is proposed in the foreshore management plan. And that's important. Reading through the foreshore management plan, I noted the comprehensive detail, follow through and strategy. So again, I'm feeling quite confident that with that in place, supported by DEWA, and at the forefront, that we will see a beautiful balance between community benefit and environmental provision and rehabilitation. So given that proposed and already undertaken waterway rehabilitation and the community benefit, plus the significant constraints posed by utility services, we see that the department is now prepared to support it. And I think that that is a benefit all around. And the fact that the upper story had not been detailed, I myself as a councillor wasn't too concerned about that, knowing the reputation and the honourable presence of the Sri Swaminarayan Temple in our community for a many number of years. I know that with that upper story, there would have been follow through, there would have been complete transparency as to the purposes for that when the time came for a fit out and the follow through there. So I urge you to support Councillor Singh's motion here. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker against the motion? Councillor Howlett.
Thank you. So we've heard about DEWA's change of mind and support of the application. But we mustn't lose fact that DBCA haven't changed their mind and still do not support that application. And along with them, I also am not satisfied that this application will not result in adverse or further adverse impacts on the tributary of Bennett Brook and subsequently the Swan Canning River system. It is the unauthorised landfill which undertook in 2018 between the existing temple building and the Bennett Brook tributary has created the steep embankments whose proximity to the tributary has prohibited the recontouring of the fringing vegetation, and through erosion of the fill has led to increased nutrient impact. I share the concerns of the DBCA and their objection to the proposal, and it is our shared environment. I support community efforts 100%. This is not community versus environment. We all need the environment. We need the waterways. It's our lifeblood. We mustn't ever forget that. So on this occasion, I can't support the application because I do not believe that it will not result in negative and adverse impacts on our shared waterways. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion. Any other speakers for or against the motion? Councillor Knight.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. There's so much wrong with this. The illegal infill in 2018. I mean, how can we go ahead with this when things like this happen? How can this go ahead? How can we reward this kind of behaviour? It doesn't make sense to me. As noted by Councillor Catalano, how DBCA still object to this. DWER, who is the Department of Water and Environmental Regulation, they've now changed their mind and they say that it's okay because it's a community, it's serving the community. I mean, it doesn't kind of make sense. Also, on page 250, it's got to take account on zoning and land use permissibility. D, take account of the need to protect the amenity and ongoing use of adjacent property owners as well as to provide for the needs of future residents. Well, a lot of people were very unhappy when all those trees were knocked over. And once again, going back to DWER, if using this as an excuse as revegetation to give it the green light, it doesn't make sense. So I can't support this. And we have to draw the line, I think, as a council. We shouldn't be supporting this. So thank you.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion. Question, Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, we've heard a lot about the unauthorised site works. Can I ask through you, Mr Mayor, to the relevant staff, was a retrospective application put in? Was it approved? Was it declined? Or is it still outstanding?
Mr Russell, can you assist us, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. All of the development on this site now is approved.
I'll ask again, are there any other speakers for or against the motion? Being no other speakers, before I hand back to you, Councillor Singh, I'll enter the debate and I'll need council to nominate a councillor to preside while I enter the debate in case there's a point of order. I'm Councillor Howard. You can nominate
I'd
somebody.
nominate Councillor Catalano.
I'll ask if there's a second, or is there any objection to Councillor Catalano? Councillor Catalano, if you can get your stopwatch out, I've got 5 minutes if I need it. You've got a timing device. I'll give you my stopwatch if you want.
I can time it, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, I'm happy to support the motion of Councillor Singh for a number of reasons. And firstly, I'd like to say, like many other community organisations, either religious groups, sporting groups, they need to stage their vision over a number of years. They just haven't got the finances to build everything first up, just like when we build a house, sometimes we do additions to it. So that's what they've been doing over a number of years. Now, I've read the foreshore management plan that they've been submitted by their consultants, and that's what changed the Department of Environment and Water Regulations to change their mind. Originally, DBCA and both DWER opposed it because they couldn't comply with the minimum 30-metre setback required. But what's happened in the meantime? There was concerns from local residents about the future use of the upper storey. That's now been put to bed. They have now defined the use, and the addition of the tilt-up concrete dining hall, in my view, will actually assist in reducing the noise generated by temple users who currently eat outside, have their meals outside in all types of weather, in a large open marquee, or they're served a meal inside a very large tin shed. They consume their meals summer and winter, subject to the prevailing elements. Once the dining hall is constructed, the large marquee will no longer be required. Similarly, the dining hall will also replace the large tin shed used for meals and meal preparations, and it has a similar footprint. It's very much the same size as the proposed structure, and it's a structure that's already approved and is on that footprint. I, for environmental reasons, actually support the motion. And why do I do that? On environmental grounds, we've heard about an A-class forest. For that creek line to be brought back to an A-class forest, it would increase the Bell fire rating, which would be a danger to both the temple and the nearby residents on Bennett Springs Drive. Local Noongar elders have now also in support of the work done by the temple on the rehabilitation. I'll finish by reading the conclusion of the department, or the DWA foreshore management plan. And they point out the foreshore management plan will result in a significant net improvement of the ecological function of the Temple Creek and the nearby Bennett Brook. The removal of weed species and the planting back with appropriate local native plants will provide increased habitat. The dense planting of sedges and rushes along the waterway will also assist in improving the water quality of water, not only from the subject land, but from the upstream catchment. The works outside the fenced foreshore area to divert treated stormwater will also assist with the managing flows and nutrients into the foreshore area. The significant work undertaken by the temple community already in stage 1 of this foreshore management plan and nearby areas of Bennett Brook is proof of their commitment of improving the ecological functioning of this natural asset. The temple community is also committed to the long-term maintenance of the Temple Creek area and will continue to work with Friends of the Bennett Brook so the best practice is implemented as part of the stage 1 maintenance for future downstream works. This catchment area goes as far west as Emu Swamp in Balladura. It picks up all the road water coming through Bennett Springs. The last place it stops, thank you. The last place it tries to strip some of those nutrients is in Fountain Park in Bennett Springs before it goes under the road and into the temple, what I call the Temple Creek. So on environmental grounds, I support the temple, the building. I believe if we are truly a multicultural society, and I believe we are, and just as we have approved additional classrooms for cultural learning for children to learn about their culture, such as at the Bosnian Herzegovinian Mosque in Kalashur.
Point of order, 4.7.
We'll have to, I was going to say, you might have to explain, Councillor Catalano.
Section 4.7 of the meeting procedure local law. It reaches 4.7 of the meeting procedure local law.
Do you want me to get out the local law, or were you going to explain to me what it is?
My understanding through you, presiding member, that I'm required to quote the section of the breach, which I have. 4.7 is relevance. We're talking about this application. We're not talking about other applications.
Well, I think that the general discussion, or the general points that were being made in this debate and in this particular discussion are relevant, and I'm going to continue. Let the speaker continue. Thank you.
Thank you. I won't take up any more time of Council's time. I'm fully supportive. I believe we are a truly multicultural society and we should be supporting this application. Thank you, and thank you to Councillor Caddis. Councillor Singh, you now have a right of reply. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have just 2 or 3 points. I have to do the conclusion. After I know this has issues in previously complaints about the noise, and when the function, I read some of the emails come through me, and the communities and members is lodged a complaint to the management, to the temple. There's a very loud function, and because they got to year 10 ceremonies in January. So, but my point is, if this nice even control, if they get a proper dining hall, if we don't giving this provide to what they're looking at, even because that function was held outside, everybody knows that, and they're still going on. The ceremonies every year happen, and I saw the emails, they're making requests, and the temple management is very clearly responding all the time, and they're very happy to cooperate. So this is one of the positive things. They have to respond always to not creating any issue, because sometimes they set up the functions, set up the DJ, they don't know how much volumes, what the sound of that, and whenever the situations comes up, so then is important how they're going to respond it. So if they respond positively, and even look, if 400 pupils dining outside, how they're going to affect, and if they dine inside, they're going to more score less noise, and they have to be more beneficial for living around the community members. And other things is filling the creek. I heard that about the city of Swan is very, I believe on the staff, and they are very intelligent. They're looking everything. They're looking all the recommendations, looking all the department, what they're doing, serving everything. I don't think so they can allow to filling up the creek completely in the future to anyone. Doesn't matter who's belong that or not. And other thing is not going to be impacting any of the traffic on the Marshall Road, because they are very well managed. Whenever the function comes up, other communities, they're going to share their parking and some of around the area. And they have no more space to build anywhere dining hall, because they are power line. Everybody know that. I don't know what's the capacity of the power line in somewhere here. So everybody knows that the power line, they can't build anything under the power line. They have, and that's the right place they can do it. And end of the time, I will say a request to all the councillors, please, and thank you to the office to do the recommendations. And I will say have to be support this motion to we can deliver the best outcome to our community. Thank you very much. Thanks, mate.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. I'll now put the motion. Those in favour? I have Councillor Jones, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Prodovnik, Councillor Singh, myself, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Richardson, Councillor McCulloch, and Councillor Parry. I'll make that 9. And those against were Councillors Howlett, Councillors Catalano, and Councillor Knight, which is 3. The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. That takes us to page 26 of your run sheet. Item 5.2 under operational matters. Weir Park slide on page 270. Councillor Prodovnik.
Okay, so the motion is, as part of the 2023-24 mid-year budget review, consider the following safety improvements at Weir Park. A, modify the existing metal slide to include a curve that slows down the ride. B, install additional hand grips to the climbing wall to help young children use it. C, install a framed mesh panel at the landing box to prevent children from traversing through the scaffolding side and potentially falling from the climbing wall. D, install a shade sail over the playground until the proposed trees, which are listed in the 2023-24 Capital Works program, have matured. 2, record the reason for changing the officer's recommendation as staff and council have significantly progressed the draft 23-24 budget, and adding these modifications now would require planning projects to be cancelled or deferred, hence the request for funding required for safety improvements to be found as part of the mid-year budget review process.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor McCulloch. I'll ask, is there anyone against? Thank you. You wish to debate it? Councillor Howlett, do you wish to debate it?
No.
Anyone wish to debate it? Then, in the absence of anyone wishing to debate it,
I'd like to speak to this. I think it needs to be spoken to.
Sorry,
And there needs to
there's
be a
no one
debate
wants to
here.
speak against it. I'm just going to put it Councillor Predovnik. I'll ask those in favour, please raise your hand. I have Councillor Jones, Councillor Predovnik, Councillor Singh, Councillor Zanino and Councillor McCulloch, which is 5.
I have a
And-
question
Well,
as well through you,
sorry,
Mr Mayor.
Sorry.
I have a question because there's,
Well, can you just wait for me to do the count first, please? All those in favour, can I ask you to please raise your hand? Of Councillor Jones, you raising your hand, Councillor Predovnik, or not? Yes. Councillor Predovnik, Councillor Singh, Councillor Parry, Councillor Zanino and Councillor McCulloch, which is 6. Those against are Councillor Bowman, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Catalano, myself, Councillor Knight and Councillor Richardson. Okay, it's tied 6-all. I will vote the same way I did.
before you vote, I have a question though.
Sorry,
I think needs to be
can't
asked.
take it at this point, Councillor Predovnik. I'll vote the way I did the first time, against, and therefore the motion is lost. 6 votes to 7.
Can I ask a question now?
You can ask a question now.
Can I ask staff, have there been any serious injuries reported this week caused by the slide? Any broken bones?
Mr Bishop or any other staff member aware? Well,
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the city has been advised this week there has been one incident. We are still investigating it, but the incident that has been reported has been an incident to one of the slide users, and they have fractured their leg.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr CEO?
Thank you. It's been my advice that they were probably inappropriately using the device and they had a child between their legs as they were attempting to use the slide.
Can we ask how old the child was?
I don't know, Councillor Bowman. I don't know if the staff know that.
And the staff has not been advised of the age.
Okay. Councillor Bowman, you have a question?
I move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. I'll call for seconder. Councillor Richardson, is there anyone against? You wish to debate it?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And Councillor Bowman, I'll ask you to open the debate.
Reserve my right.
Thank you. Councillor Richardson is the seconder.
I've reserved my right as well, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Well, you don't get a chance of speaking again. You either speak now. Councillor Predovnik, you want to speak against it? You have 5 minutes.
Can we have the officer's recommendation up on the screen, please? All right, do I start now?
When you're ready.
Okay. I'm speaking against this recommendation and I would ask council to support, not supporting it. This slide was created for 6 to 14-year-olds. It was intended to be fast. It was intended to be fun. It was intended to be a positive experience for kids. But in reality, it's a painful experience for many kids, and that's only become apparent with use. Now, it might comply with Australian standards, but its design is causing problems. Kids are coming out too fast. They're flying into wood chips. They're hurting their backs, tailbones, arms and legs. They are also getting burnt on very hot metal on the way down. That's what parents are telling us. Council supported a report coming back to council about these issues in December last year. What's come back is this motion, recommending simply to note safety concerns and to keep monitoring this situation, and I'm asking council to reject this option and for us to be far more proactive to fix this. Safety has consistently been raised as a concern by families. People are telling us we need to tweak aspects of the design to make it more practical and more safe for people to use. The vast majority of complaints have come in on social media, especially when the slide was officially opened in October 2021. In December last year, I got 205 comments over 4 Facebook pages in response to a motion to tweak the design and address safety concerns. Most of those comments were about kids not enjoying the experience. A few people made the comment, risk in play is important for a child's development on many levels, that if we wrap kids up in cotton wool, they don't learn how to have fun, take risks or learn consequences. Some people did express that view, but overwhelmingly people recognised this issue went far beyond risk in play into the danger zone where kids were getting hurt. Generally, people don't think to contact the City of Swan and complain about a bad experience they have on our playground. And why would they? When their target audience is other parents. That's why they go on social media, on parenting sites, and leave online reviews. As concerned parents, they talk to each other and they are sharing horror stories and warning other parents to stay away. They're also sharing photos. What good is the tick of approval saying it meets Australian standards when the design is a problem and overwhelmingly parents are warning other parents to stay away? Lottery West gave us $1.3 million grant to build the youth hangout zone next to it, and the Stefanelli family donated $1 million to build the playground for little kids. That's $2.3 million worth of play equipment gifted to the City of Swan by grants and donations. It's a big investment into Midland, and I'm asking us to make a comparatively small investment to tweak the design to fix the things people are asking us to fix. Please send the right message to our community. Please don't support this motion.
Thank you. Question, Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Question to staff, please. When the Stefanellis and their design team submitted the application for the playground, was it approved by staff?
Mr Giacovino, if you can answer that.
Yes, so the design that went through to staff, it was reviewed by staff. It also went to council for endorsement as well.
Thank you.
And were there any concerns about the steepness of the slide and the material that was chosen?
Mr Giacovino.
The slide of use was to be a fast slide. So with that, they're still being within the standard. Staff were happy. The steepness still meets the standard, and the material also meets the standard as well.
I'll ask for a speaker for the motion. Any other speakers against the motion? Any other speakers? Councillor McCulloch, wish to speak? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think Councillor Predovnik has outlined quite a few aspects. Working in education management for a number of years and looking at a lot of structures and what deems an approved safety standard under Australian regulations is many and varied, and the scope and scale of that is considerable. What you also see is some incredible playgrounds and structures for young children, older children and teenagers that are creative, that encourage risk and challenge. But in the course of each and every structure being built across each and every school, playground, park and such, is that regardless of a box ticked or an Australian safety standard, there are certain things that come into play occasionally that present implications, complications, and ultimately an outworking where misfortune befalls someone and maybe someone else, and then you have an issue. So there are times when something is built, it's built to standards, it is a great design, it encourages challenge, risk, etc., but it just doesn't quite outwork the way it was meant to. And I suppose part of each of those structures involves feedback and ongoing management of that feedback, and maybe customer experience or young people experiences where we need to look at and attend to potential risks and those things and maybe look at the tweaks. So where to from here? Councillor Predovnik's previous motion did outline some remedies, but I think into the future we do definitely need to look at this. It's an exceptional space. It is well loved by the community and well utilised, but there are a couple of tweaks that for that ongoing safety risk management would be prudent. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion. Any other speakers for or against? Then Councillor Bowman, you're right to reply. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, if this was such a safety issue, LGIS, the local government insurers, would be jumping all over this and the relevant staff members to protect themselves, the city and everyone else. Too fast, I hear. I've been down a few playgrounds, a few slides that are too fast. Mandramp's one of them. Didn't do it again. But it's interesting how the kids think they're never too fast, but the parents always do. It was designed for 6 to 14-year-olds. But when you see a 3-year-old go down it, it's not designed for that. Making the playground safe. Well, every playground in the city potentially is not safe. When you have children climbing on the roof structures, when you have them doing inappropriate things, these are all things that we need to consider and outweigh the risks. But the issue is it complies. It complies, councillor. It complies with the requirements. It complies with Australian standards, and that is what we have to comply with. Councillors, danger zone. Well, I don't see the danger zone, although I was thinking Top Gun when that happened. I don't see the danger zone. I just see a challenging slide that goes really fast, and some people love it and some people don't. The $120,000. Well, that's 0.1 of a rate increase. And again, I haven't seen a local government try to do an amendment to a budget in the mid-year budget when you haven't even adopted it. But that was the last item, so I'm going off track and I'll come back to it. Councillors, it's risk. Everything's a risk. Is it fun? For some, yes, some, no. Does it comply? Yes, it does. And as such, I support the officer's recommendation.
I have some questions.
Sorry, I can't take questions. I'm about to put the vote, Councillor Predovnik.
Why can't we take questions?
Because the mover has entered his right of reply and it's now time to put it to the vote. I'm sorry. I'll now put the motion to the vote. Those in favour of Councillor Jones, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Catalano, myself, Councillor Knight, Councillor Richardson and Councillor Parry. I make that 8. Those against were Councillor Predovnik, Councillor Singh, Councillor Zanino and Councillor McCulloch, which is 4. The motion is passed. We now move to the next item, which is on page 27 of your run sheet. It's item 6.3, change in basis of valuation. I need a mover and a seconder, councillors. Move Councillor Richardson. Seconded. Councillor McCulloch. And I'll ask, is there anyone against? You wish to debate it? Thank you. Councillor Richardson is the mover of the motion. You have 5 minutes to open your debate. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor McCulloch is the seconder. Thank you. Speaker against, Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, councillors, A, C and D are the normal changes in the basis of valuation that we're used to seeing. And I expect all councillors are familiar with these as we have done quite a few. Councillors, we know there are some long-standing issues with our rating system and how certain properties are rated. An example that is mentioned every time is Brigadoon. I'm not going to get into the finer details of this, but there is a grey area that needs to be sorted out, although there has seemed to be a reluctance by the administration to do so, which is evident from the amount of years that have lapsed since first identified. One of the difficulties in simple terms is the use of land for the larger acreage properties. This can be a little more challenging, but can be done. To say I was shocked and now extremely concerned on the item before us tonight is probably an understatement. And it's on regarding B. And we've been asked to change the method of valuation from UV to GRV for 17 Ashton Road, Bullsbrook. This is a 2,000 square metre property that should never have been rated UV. It has a residential zoning and staff cannot advise and do not know how many more are like this. Have staff undertaken a quick check of similar sized surrounding properties on Harling Way, Kimberley Street, a task that should take a mere 30 minutes. Councillors, this may just seem like one property to you, but to me it's ringing alarm bells that not all is what it should be, and we have some fundamental problems that appear to not be being addressed. Our rating strategy, as quoted by the CEO at our special council meeting, is fairness and equity, and I see this fails to do this.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion. Any other speakers for or against the motion? No other speakers, then Councillor Richardson, you'll write a reply. Thank you.
Further to add, Young.
Thank you. I'll then put the vote. Those in favour of the officer's recommendation, I have Councillor Jones, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Podovnik, Councillor Singh, myself, Councillor Knight, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Richardson and Councillor McCulloch, Councillor Parry, that is 10. Those against is Councillor Bowman, Councillor Catalano, which is 2. The motion is passed. Thank you, councillors. That takes us to the next page on the run sheets, page 28. It's an item of urgent business, 9.1, cancel delegate attendance at the 2023 ACLG conference in Canberra. I'll allow councillors 2 minutes if they need to read the late supplementary report if you need it. Thank you. So I'll allow everyone 2 minutes reading time. You should have a hard copy of that supplementary item on your desk. In 2 minutes' time, I'll take questions from Councillor Bowman before calling for a mover and a seconder. Yeah, Councillor Bowman is first. Do councillors need more reading time, or is everyone up to? Councillor Bowman, you indicated you have a question or questions.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, the report identifies there's no additional costs. Just confirming by going to this, you are not required to stay an extra night and therefore no extra accommodation?
No.
Okay, thank you. And Mr Mayor, the report says there's nil strategic implications. If there's not nil strategic implications, why has it been considered?
I'll have to get the CEO to deal with that. I didn't write the report. When you're ready, Mr. CEO.
Thank you, and through the chair. Technically, there's not a specific, well, at the time we drafted it, which is very late notice, and just to give you some background to this, under our policy, the Mayor can attend activities like this. He's got a personal invitation to the Australian Council of Local Government meeting. There was a departmental request. There's a formal recommendation from Council to support the delegate attending. So technically, there should probably be, it's been drafted by a link to the strategic community plan and under governance. So I'd suggest, Mr Mayor, that in hindsight, we should say this links to our government advocacy requirements.
Thank you. Councillor Catalano, you had questions?
I just wanted to know why this is being brought to council.
Thank you, Mr. CEO.
Thank you through the chair, and it's just administrative. One of the government agency that's running it has said we want a council resolution. It seems a little strange as the mayor also had endorsement, I should say, as the mayor has a personal invitation from the minister who's conducting the event to attend. I don't know why. We're just going through their motions.
Any other questions? Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to the CEO. So would this include the councillor's spouse? And if it did, what would be the cost for a spouse to attend, including flights and accommodation?
The invitation to attend the forum and the dinner is only available to the invited person. No other person can attend. I'll now ask for a mover and a seconder. Moving Councillor Bowman, seconding Councillor McCulloch. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare that carried unanimously, which now takes us to, yes, before we start on part C, it's 8 o'clock and we'll break for 10 minutes. Thank you, councillors. We'll resume at 10 minutes past 8. Thank you. We're moving to part C of the agenda and motions of which previous notice has been given. Item C 1.1, Councillor Bowman, Piazza New Junction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I move the council resolves request the CEO prepare a report to be presented to council within 6 months of the advantages and disadvantages of a hardscape piazza versus a softscape piazza in the Midland Oval development.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Howlett. Is there anyone against? Thank you. Do you wish to debate it? You wish to debate it, Councillor Catalano? Okay, neither councillor wishes to debate it. Are there any councillors wish to debate the item? Then I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour of Councillor Bowman, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Singh, Councillor Knight and Councillor Richardson, which is 5. Those against, I have Councillor Jones, Councillor Podovnik, Councillor Catalano, myself, Councillor Zanino, Councillor McCulloch and Councillor Parry, which is 7. The motion is lost. I'm just going to turn a few pages and go to the next item, C 1.2. Councillor Podovnik, frequency of local government ordinary elections. It's on page 33 of your run sheet. Thank you, Councillor Podovnik.
All right, that council resolved to 1, request changes to the Local Government Act 1995 election provisions to enable the City of Swan to hold 1 election every 4 years instead of 2 years as an opportunity to improve the process and substantially keep the cost of an election, which will cost ratepayers around $5,600 this year. 2, submit a motion to the next Walgett East Metropolitan Zone meeting requesting Walgett advocate for this issue and the creation of a WA Parliamentary Select Committee to conduct an inquiry that solely focuses on Part 4 of the Local Government Act that deals with election regulations. Reasons: 1, it will save ratepayers in the City of Swan over $5,600 over 1 election cycle, which is 4 years. This is a saving in excess of $1.12 million in the next 2 election cycles, 8 years, which could be spent on fixing more footpaths, providing more security measures, lighting, graffiti, removal, trees, shade sails, barbecues, playgrounds, etc. 2, it is reasonable to expect a number of councillors will be returned if there is a full spill every 4 years, so corporate knowledge will still be retained within council. 3, local governments in Victoria, New South Wales, Queensland, South Australia and Tasmania all operate 4-year election cycles. This standard cycle has not impeded their ability to provide good governance. 4, there is a lot of amendments to the Local Government Act over the years as it's regularly reviewed in its entirety, but there has never been a state parliament inquiry focusing only on the elections. 5, the high cost of elections has always been an issue for the sector. Calling for a review of the Local Government Act election provisions by a select committee gives Walgett something tangible it can advocate for.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Being no seconder, Councillor Parry, sorry. I've moved in Councillor Podovnik, seconding Councillor Parry. Is there anyone against? You wish to debate it? Yep. Yes, you have 5 minutes to open your debate, Councillor Podovnik. Thank you.
Right, Council's position on this, endorsed at a special meeting in March 2019, was for a 2-year election cycle. But since then, our costs have dramatically increased. This month, we were told there's plans to increase our power bill for the streetlights by 43%, adding an extra $800,000 to our already large street light costs. And the cost of our upcoming election, $560,000, is our most expensive yet. It was so expensive it prompted Council to ask the city to write to the minister expressing concern about the cost of postal elections. In light of these hefty price hikes, I'm asking Council to revisit our position on a 2-year election cycle to see where we can make savings here. The report to Council says the local government minister appointed an independent review panel to develop policy responses to guide the development of the new Local Government Act. Walgo was part of that small panel. That panel was a hand-picked group set up to look at the minister's proposal to help fine-tune policy positions and flesh out what some of the issues might be around government proposals. But what I'm talking about tonight is bigger and broader than that small panel. I'm asking for Council to support this motion and get the ball rolling towards an independent review, which will draw a much broader engagement. There has never been an absolute focus on Part 4 of the Local Government Act, which deals with the election regulations. The Act has always been revised in its entirety. This focus on the election regulations and nothing else is something Walga would support based on discussions I've had this week. I'm asking Council to support opening up this discussion more broadly with interested stakeholders to talk about the pros and cons, and ultimately it would give everyone a chance to present their views at an inquiry. This motion is simply a request to get the ball rolling in a direction that could save us a lot of money over time, or at least get an important discussion started. Please support this motion.
Thank you. Is the second who'd like to speak?
Nothing further to say, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parry. Speaker against? Councillor Bowman, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, the biggest review of the Local Government Act since it was written, that was 1995, has been occurring over the last few years with a number of proposed changes already drafted and ready for approval. And Councillor Podolnik is now, at this point, raising this motion. My apologies if this sounds cynical, but I must question why. This council, before my time, has previously endorsed a 2-year election cycle split, and although council is open to change their position, I have not seen or received any correspondence from my community indicating this is a priority. Walga, on behalf of all WA local governments, following feedback from the local government industry, advocated for the 2-year split to continue. There was not even a majority support from residents for a 4-year split, as now being requested by Councillor Podolnik, for numerous reasons, with less than 44% supporting this. Is Councillor Podolnik suggesting that a 56% level of support from residents is not enough to keep the status quo? Is Councillor Podolnik suggesting that all 139 WA local governments will be on the same 4-year cycle? Or will half be on one 4-year cycle and the other half on another 4-year cycle? As the answer to this question has cost implications. I note that one of the reasons provided by Councillor Podolnik is due to the recent changes to the local government introducing direct election of the mayor for a 4-year term. And although the City of Swan was forced to now have a popularly elected mayor against the wishes of some councillors, this method of electing the mayor has always been an option in the 95 Local Government Act, and is an option that a number of large metropolitan local governments have had for a significant amount of time. I did not see or hear any of these local governments advocating for a 4-year election split. And just a little correction, Section 4 of the Act has been reviewed, because in 2007 it was popularly elected or from first past the post to the newer format. It lasted one cycle and went back. At the March Council meeting,
What's your point of order, please?
The claim I made is that there's never been an inquiry into it. Complete focus on it. That's what Walga told me.
I'll rule you have no point of order. Thank you, Councillor. You can please continue, Councillor Bowman.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. At the March Council meeting, this council considered 2023 elections, and they have re-listened to the tapes. Councillor Podolnik did not raise the issue of a 4-year election split, yet at the same meeting, an amendment to the officer's recommendation was moved by me and also supported by Councillor Podolnik. That was the city write to the Minister for Local Government expressing concern with the cost of postal elections conducted by the WAC, and requested the state government investigate the percentage of WAC staff costs and overheads charged to local governments. At the same meeting, Councillor Podolnik voted for postal elections, which the officers' report indicated was a higher cost than that of in-person elections. So again, without wanting to appear or sound cynical, why now is Councillor Budovnik raising this item that we have us assume it's all about cost savings? There have been a number of cost-saving suggestions put forward by me and others to this council. Cost-saving alternatives to office representation moved by me and others, and yet on many occasions, Councillor Budovnik has not supported my ones, and some of these were not for small amounts, and some were for ongoing savings. 2 examples tonight. In the 3.5 years that Councillor Budovnik has been on this council, what cost-saving initiatives has she previously suggested? What cost-saving initiatives?
How is this relevant?
Yes, thank you. Councillor Bowman, I'll ask you to stick to the item, which is the frequency of local government elections, and not almost impute other councillors. I'll uphold the point of order and ask you to stay on track. Thank you, Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My understanding is the reason for the motion was one which was about a cost saving and was one of the main reasons for that, but I'll keep going. The cost of WAC conducting post-elections is significant. Perhaps a better understanding of the process of what is charged would be a good starting position. Perhaps lobbying for a review of the WAC costings, ensuring they are not overinflated, or requesting they review all their processes. As you never know, perhaps they can again reduce the cost of post-elections charged to local governments. And I remind councillors, in 2005, the reduction was 34% to every local government.
You have 1 minute left, thank you.
How do I know? Well, it was me that achieved this for all local governments and ratepayers. Councillors, I'm always looking at ways to cut costs to save ratepayers' funds, but these need to be well researched and well considered. This motion for Councillor Budovnik, in my opinion, fails on both accounts, and as such, I cannot support a motion.
Thank you. A speaker for the motion? Any other speakers against the motion? Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Howlett?
Thank you. Again, I wasn't going to speak to this motion tonight, but I speak against the motion. As a newly elected member of council, I like the idea that I come into a council where there is already an existing council. So there is an opportunity to learn from those who are currently seated members and to extract their guidance and wisdom, and for there to be total operational function of the council, because I know that I personally felt it took a little while to get up to speed to understand the processes. I fear that if we went to a 4-year cycle, potentially you could have a complete spill in a whole new council, which could lead to all kinds of craziness. I think when you consider the aspect of the staff, as it is every 2 years, they have to meet potentially a whole new set of, half the council. I think it would be pretty challenging for them to have to meet a full new council of 14 new councillors, potentially, if we go to a 4-year cycle. I think that there are other opportunities that a councillor might take more than one, or a candidate might take more than one round to get up and to become elected. So a 4-year cycle is potentially 8 years of their life attempting to fulfil their desire to become a representative of their community and get elected onto council. A 2-year cycle allows that to happen in a much more realistic time frame. They are the reasons why I don't support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Howlett. Speaker for the motion? Any other speakers for or against? Then Councillor Budovnik, your right to reply. Thank you.
It's really not a complicated motion. It's simply just asking for an election cycle to be considered. We're requesting changes. There's ongoing discussions. Again, this election provisions and Part 4 of the Act has not been solely focused on. The Act is reviewed every couple of years, but it's not a sole focus. So that's what we're asking. I'm asking Council to support. Also, Wolga would be happy to support it as well. Again, I've spoken to them at length about this. It's not controversial. It does have an opportunity to save us money. At the very least, we're just making a request. If it goes nowhere, so what? If it goes somewhere and we can save some money, great. It's not costing us anything to ask. I don't really understand what the opposition to something as simple as a request would be. Again, if it goes nowhere, so what? If it goes somewhere, we can benefit. So I'm asking you to support this motion. I think it would be beneficial. It would save a lot of money. And just in response to Councillor Bowman's questions as to why, I think we can all agree that there's just been a lot of costs that have come up, and this is an opportunity to make some cost-saving measures potentially over time. I don't want to keep banging on about the electricity bill, but $800,000 extra this year is a lot for ratepayers. So let's just have a look at some smart ways that we can, bring the costs down. Please support this motion.
Thank you. I'll now put the motion. Those in favour? I have Councillor Predovnik, Councillor Zanino and myself, and Councillor Parry, which is 4. Those against is Councillor Jones, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Singh, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Knight, Councillor Richardson and Councillor McCulloch, which is 8. The motion is lost. 4 votes to 8. Thank you. That takes us to the next item on the agenda. It's on page 35 of your run sheet. Item C 1.3. It's a review of financial hardship guidelines and the creation of a rates debt financial hardship policy. Councillor Predovnik.
So this motion is that Council resolves to review our current extreme financial hardship guidelines with a view to creating a rates debt financial hardship policy. Consider the inclusion of the following changes and prepare a report back to Council for the July Ordinary Council meeting. A, remove the need to have no more than 1 year of rates debt to be eligible to apply for the hardship relief. B, remove the word extreme from the policy and more clearly define hardship. C, enable business customers, corporations or trusts to also apply for hardship relief. D, allow more types of supporting documentation to demonstrate financial hardship, for example, a letter from an accountant, financial counsellor, bank manager, business activity statement for businesses, etc. E, remove the $400 cap on the maximum interest amount to be written off. F, for ratepayers eligible under the criteria outlined above, the CEO should consider the following mechanisms to assist the applicant: halt interest on outstanding rates. 1, halt interest on outstanding rates. 2, no interest charges on outstanding emergency services levy if in accordance with state government guidance. 3, no additional charge, including by way of interest charge for payments by instalments or payment arrangements. 4, payment terms extended for rates and charges. G, make the new hardship policy more visible on the website by including it on the rates landing page. And the reason for the motion is with the continued interest rate rises and people coming off fixed interest rates over the course of the next year, it's reasonable to expect more people may fall into financial hardship. The latest ABS homeless data shows Swan has the highest number of homelessness across the state, with Midland Guildford, Middle Swan, Herne Hill and Beachborough our primary areas of concern. Currently, the scope outlined in our extreme financial hardship guidelines is so narrow, the majority of people experiencing genuine financial hardship don't qualify. The suggested changes are in line with the Office of the West Australian Ombudsman's local government collection of overdue rates for people in situations of vulnerability, good practice guidance, and most of the proposed amendments are included in the hardship policies of 3 other local governments, Coburn, Albany and Belmont, and can be applied to help our community in Swan.
Thank you, Councillor Predovnik. Just before I call for a second, I was supposed to ask you, and I forgot earlier in the meeting. When I spoke to staff this afternoon, they said getting the report back for the July OCM would be difficult, and I want to know if you could amend it to the August OCM.
Yes.
Thank you. So that point 2 will now need the ordinary August meeting. I'll now call for a seconder. Councillor Jones, is there anyone against?
Amendment.
Hang on, I've got 3 amendments. And Councillor Bowman, you are first.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I totally agree with what Councillor Predovnik is trying to do. I support that. However, item 2 onwards, we're getting into the details with restricting the staff. So my amendment, Mr Mayor, is to remove all of point 2.
Are you talking about A onwards, Councillor Bowman?
All of point 2.
And no, I don't support that. And I don't support it because...
No, that's fine. That's for me to talk next. Okay. Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Moved Councillor Parry. You spoke before you put your hand up. So if you're not prepared, Councillor Predovnik, and the seconder to accept it, then we'll have to debate it as an amendment.
Sure. Look, I just want to say that I want all of those items to be considered as part of the policy.
Well, you'll get a chance to debate that in a second.
That was my debate.
Okay. So now the mover and the seconder speak first, Mr. CEO. So you can open your debate on your motion. Thank you, Councillor Predovnik. On the amendment. Parry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, as I said before, I totally support what Councillor Predovnik is doing, but there's just too much detail. We're trying to tell staff, can you go away and review it with your professional knowledge and experience? But by the way, we are requiring all these things to be included. That's a concern to me. The other concern to me is, and I know staff picked up the July to the August, however, this is the busiest time for the finance staff. It is another thing that we need them to look at, and perhaps now is not the right time. So totally agree with the review, totally agree with what Councillor Predovnik is doing, but I just don't agree with the details and obviously putting extra pressure on staff during their most critical time in the year.
Thank you. Councillor Parry is the second of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councillor Bowman and Councillor Predovnik. What they're trying to say here. I have an issue with 2.C, which says enabled business customers, corporations or trusts to also apply for hardship relief. The problem I have there is that often with commercial leases or commercial property is that a business pays for the commercial lease while the owner of the property does not pay it. So where do we consider who is the business customer and are they struggling for hardship relief? Because there's often a segregation of responsibility when it comes to commercial leases. Therefore, I can't support that in particular. So therefore, I prefer to just look at option 1 or point 1. Go look at its entirety and go from there. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Parry. Speaker against the amendment.
Yes.
Councillor Predovnik.
All right. So really, all I'm asking council to do, and pleased to support this, is I'm asking staff to consider the inclusion of. So it's not a definite you have to include this, but it is a consideration of some of the issues that I would welcome coming back to council, being fleshed out, being considered, accepted or rejected by staff, but as long as it's included. So the wording is to consider the inclusion of. I'm not telling them what to write or how to write it. I'm asking them to consider looking and including these aspects as they come back in a report to council. This is based on a long period of time working in this area, obviously, because I've been on council now for over 3 years. And I just think that these are things that we could look at. Again, council ultimately will have the final decision. They might reject what comes back as suggestions in a draft hardship policy, but at least it's been considered and included potentially in some form.
Thank you. Speaker for the amendment. Councillor Howlett.
Thank you. Yeah, I speak in favour of the words spoken by Councillor Parry and by Councillor Bowman. It is from 2 down can disappear. I'm more than happy to support item 1 on there to review it and see what comes back from staff. I appreciate what Councillor Predovnik wants to see it move, and I think that's something that we probably all would agree with. But there are issues there that I have with the item C and item D in particular. So I think it's probably better if we just remove all of 2 below, and then we can let the staff go forward, as Councillor Bowman said, with their professional to us at a time that they are not flat out with their finances. Agreed. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker against the amendment. Councillor McCulloch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, in Councillor Predovnik's motion, the items in 2, again, I repeat, consider the inclusion of. Staff are busy and under the pump with certain things. We've looked at an additional time frame. And if you look at each of those items, I don't believe Councillor Predovnik would have added them into this notice of motion without detailed consideration of why they're actually there, to be considered, to make sure they are included in the consideration for us to then come back to consider the report. So again, sort of chopping the tail off, so to speak. Let's get the whole picture, the holistic view that considers so many different aspects, and let's be open to this and make sure that we get it right with all the right inclusions and considerations, because this is an extreme financial hardship guideline that includes some of the most fragile, broken and at-risk individuals in the city. And I deal with some of those most fragile, broken individuals in the city on a daily basis, and I would really like to see us unpack this thoroughly. Thank you. Please don't support this amendment.
Thank you. Speaker for the amendment. Any other speakers for or against? And Councillor Bowman, you write a reply. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I heard about chopping the tail off. If I use my own, it's a tail wagging the dog. Mr Mayor, the normal process for most of our policies is staff draft the policy. They actually would go and coordinate through the different directorates. They would then probably go to exec. Then it comes to council, often to be workshopped. And I noticed we've had a memo just the other day with 20 or 25 planning policies with some changes and all that, asking us to have a look at them. We then would give our feedback, we'd ask questions, we'd give our comments, our views, based on the draft policy that staff have gone and written for us. It's not normal to tell staff, please go draft a policy, but we want you to consider this, and I think one more, this. I think around this room, we all agree with the intent. We agree to actually do the review. We're just saying, let the details to the staff, let them consider the policy. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm now putting the amendment. Councillors, those in favour of the amendment, of Councillor Bowman, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Knight and Councillor Parry, which is 5. Those against the amendment, I have Councillor Jones, Councillor Podovnik, Councillor Singh, myself, Councillor Zanino and Councillor McCulloch, which is 6. The amendment is lost. We're now back to the substantive motion of Councillor Podovnik. I'll ask, are there any speakers? I know you haven't even opened your debate yet, Councillor Podovnik. Do you want to do that, or do you just want me to put it to the vote? Thank you. Those in favour of Councillor Podovnik's motion, please raise your hand. I have Councillor Jones, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Podovnik, Councillor Singh, Councillor Catalano, myself, Councillor Parry, Councillor Knight, Councillor Zanino and Councillor McCulloch, which is 10, and those against were Councillor Howlett. The motion is carried 10-1. Thank you, councillors. That takes us to notices of motions for consideration of the following meeting. Councillors, I'll just advise that anyone who wishes to put up a notice of motion for consideration of the following meeting, the deadline for that cut-off is 5 p.m. on Monday, the 22nd of May. There are no confidential items, and I'm now happy to close the meeting at 8:39 p.m. I said close this time. I think I said open last week. I thank you all for your attendance. I thank those people who may be watching online, and thank you to all the staff that attended. Well done, everyone. Thank you.
Put your argument. Keep precedent, talk to everyone. Get someone to rezone it, you'll want.